people have been swept away or buried or killed in the flash floods that have the state of Himachal Pradesh has witnessed in the last 24 hours from now. We're going to cut across to the Chief Minister of Himachal Pradesh, Sukhwinder Singh Sukhu, to get a larger picture in terms of what is going on, where the relief and rescue operations were concerned. Just about a month away, arterial roads were swept away. The state of Himachal set back at least 2 decades, and with what is witnessed now is only a bigger brunt on what the state had been witnessing over the course of the last 1 month alone. There's been incessant rainfall, especially in areas of Mandi. There has been a cloud burst which has swept away many in the flash floods. 7 people swept away in the flash floods. Till now, the total count stands at 41, which could be inching towards 50 because many unidentified bodies also been recovered this evening. But having said that, we're going to cut across to the Chief Minister of Himachal Pradesh in just about 2 minutes. But let's get you the latest in terms of the ground reports coming in right now.
Houses submerged, cars trapped, trees uprooted. The hill states of Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand are in the grip of the monsoon fury. Unprecedented heavy rains over the last 24 hours have triggered landslides and cloudbursts in both states. Many people were killed after a Shiva temple collapsed in the Summerhill area of Shimla amid heavy rainfall. A large number of devotees had gathered at the temple to offer prayers on the occasion of Sawan when the disaster struck.
इसके बाद अब रेस्क्यू और राहत और बचाव कार्य का काम जो है वो यहाँ पर किया जा रहा है और टीमें जो हैं वो सभी यहाँ पर मौजूद हैं। लेकिन वही है कि कितना, क्योंकि ये संभावना, आप इस तरफ जरा पेड़ों को देखें, ये संभावना जो है वो लगातार यहाँ पे बनी हुई है कि कोई पेड़ जो है वो कहीं नीचे की तरफ ना गिराए।
पिछली बारी की आपदा ने जहाँ जान माल को कम नुकसान पहुँचाकर संपत्ति को और संपदा को ज़्यादा नुकसान पहुँचाता है, इस बारिश ने जो 24 घंटों से लगातार हो रही है, मुझे लगता है काफ़ी जिंदगियों को हमारे से छीन लिया है। कि हमारी प्रयास है कि किसी तरह जीवन को जो दबे हुए हैं कुछ जिंदगियों को बचाया जा सके।
Joining me right now is the Chief Minister of the state of Himachal Pradesh, Sukhwinder Singh Sukhu. Appreciate you joining us, sir. बहुत शुक्रिया कि आप हमसे जुड़े चीफ मिनिस्टर साहब। सबसे पहले सुखविंदर जी, आप हमें बता सकते हैं कि अभी क्या स्थिति है? 1 महीने पहले ही सर मैं आपसे मिली थी भुंतर में, तब आपने बताया था उस वक्त कि जो डैमेज लाइफ और प्रॉपर्टी को बहुत ज़्यादा था उस वक्त, पर इन टर्म्स ऑफ लाइफ कम फैटेलिटीज़ हुई हैं। पर जो पिछले 24 घंटे हैं सर, उसमें कहा जा रहा है कि नियरली 50 फैटेलिटीज हुई हैं अभी तक।
देखिए, कभी भी बारिश से इतनी ज़्यादा मौतें नहीं हुई थी। पिछली बार जो 7 से 11 जुलाई के बीच तबाही का मंजर था, उसने संपत्ति और संपदा को बहुत बड़ा नुकसान पहुंचाया था। उस समय हमें टूरिस्टों को बाहर निकालने का बड़ा काम था, हमने निकाले भी, 15,000 गाड़ी को भी निकाला। लेकिन आज एक दिन में बारिश के समय हमें नहीं लगता कि हमारे जीवन काल में कभी भी 50 से अधिक जाने गई है, और अभी कुछ और जाने की सूचना मुझे प्राप्त हुई है। मैंने अभी हाई लेवल की मीटिंग की है, अभी रात को फिर एक और मीटिंग हमारी है। मुझे लगता है कि काफ़ी नुकसान हुआ है और ह्यूमन लॉस काफ़ी ज़्यादा हुआ है। उस दृष्टि से लैंडस्लाइड्स के कारण आज सुबह ही शिमला के नज़दीक एक शिव मंदिर में तकरीबन 22-23 लोग थे, जिसमें से 8 लोगों के शव निकाल लिए गए हैं। शिमला के नज़दीक फागली क्षेत्र में 5 लोगों के शव निकाल लिए गए हैं। सोलन से कम 7 लोगों के परिवार, एक ही परिवार के 7 लोगों जमी दोज हो गए। तो काफ़ी जगह मंडी में अभी 19 लोगों की मौत की खबर हमारे पास अभी पहुंची है। तो तकरीबन 50 से अधिक मौतों की सूचना की मैं पुष्टि अभी करता हूं, इससे अधिक भी जाने की संभावना है।
सीएम साहब, ये जो आप हमें काउंट दे रहे हैं, आप कह रहे हैं कि 50 की आपको कॉन्फर्मेशन है और उससे ज़्यादा भी ह्यूमन लाइफ लॉस हो सकता है इस 24 घंटे में। सर, आप हमें बता पाएंगे कि इतना ज़्यादा लॉस टू लाइफ कैसे हो गया सर 24 घंटे में?
देखिए, लैंडस्लाइड्स हुआ, कुछ जगह बहुत तेज़ बारिश से लैंडस्लाइड्स के कारण पेड़ गिरे, पेड़ अपरूटेड हुए और उन्होंने घरों पर आकर तबाही मचाई और मलबे और स्लैश ने पूरे घर बर्बाद कर दिए। लैंडस्लाइड्स के कारण बहुत ज़्यादा मौतें हुई है, जिसके कारण अभी जो सूचना प्राप्त हो रही है उसमें और इसलिए कह रहा हूँ कि 12 से 18 लोग शिव मंदिर में अभी फंसे हुए हैं, जिनकी जैसे जैसे समय बीतता जा रहा है उनकी जीवित रहने की उम्मीद कम होती जा रही है। और पूरे हमीरपुर डिस्ट्रिक्ट में इस बार जहाँ काफ़ी पानी आया है वहाँ 4 से 5 के करीब मौतें हुई हैं। तो कई जगह से भी सूचनाएं 24 घंटे में इतनी ज़्यादा सूचनाएं पहले कभी नहीं आई है। पिछली बार मैं खुद ग्राउंड जीरो पर था, इस बार भी मैं खुद अपने इस रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन को देख रहा हूँ, तो हर जगह से यही आ रहा है कि अब इस ज़िले में इतने लोग मिसिंग है, इतने लोग निकाल लिए गए और इतने लोगों का कुछ पता नहीं चला है। तो आज रात अगर बारिश और तो भाई रहती है, बरसती है, तो मेरा यही अनुरोध है कि सब लोग जहाँ लैंडस्लाइड से पहले थोड़ा सा पता लगता है पत्थर गिरने लग जाते हैं, उन घरों को छोड़ दें, घरों में रहें। और अभी सड़कों 1200 के करीब हमारी सड़कें अवरुद्ध है लैंडस्लाइड्स के कारण। तो अगले 2 दिन में हमारी जो स्थिति है वो सड़कें खोलने की, उनको हम अगर बारिश रुकेगी तभी खोल पाएंगे, वरना और लैंडस्लाइड होते जाएंगे। तो हमारा यही कोशिश है कि सब लोगों को से हमने अनुरोध किया। पिछले कल ही मैं शाम को जब मैंने मीटिंग ली थी, सारे स्कूल शिक्षा संस्थान बंद कर दिए थे पिछले कल ही। तो आज सुबह से ही नुकसान का जायजा जब मैंने लेने निकला तो
जी,
मौतों का आंकड़ा बढ़ता ही जा रहा है।
मौतों का आंकड़ा बढ़ता जा रहा है। ये हम अलार्मिस्ट नहीं साउंड करना चाह रहे हैं सीएम साहब, पर आपसे ये पूछेंगे कि जो पूरे हिमाचल में है सबसे ज़्यादा जहां पर आपदा है, सबसे ज़्यादा अफेक्टेड एरियाज कौन से हैं? आपने जो शिव मंदिर का जिक्र किया, सुबह से रेस्क्यू रिलीफ ऑपरेशन चल रहा है, वहां पर आप कह रहे हैं अभी भी 15 लोग फंसे हुए हैं और जैसा जैसे वक्त गुजर रहा है उनका सर्वाइवल चांस कम होता जा रहा है। एनडीआरएफ की कितनी टीम्स हैं सर? लास्ट टाइम मैं थी, मैंने देखा था कि आपने एयरफोर्स की भी मदद ली थी। क्या आप मतलब आर्मी से या एयरफोर्स से फिर अर्ज करेंगे गवर्नमेंट को कि उनको भी इन्वॉल्व करें?
नहीं, शिव मंदिर में सुबह से आर्मी है, आईटीबीपी है, एसडीआरएफ है, एनडीआरएफ है, हिमाचल पुलिस के कर्मचारी है, सब लोग हैं, वहाँ के लोकल लोग भी है, सब लोग काम कर रहे हैं। हमने सुबह ही मदद ले ली है उनसे, सारी मदद हमने उनसे ले ली है।
सर वर्स्ट
और
अफेक्टेड एरियाज कौन से हैं
सब प्रकार
सीएम
से
साहब?
मदद लेकर और डिस्ट्रिक्टों में मंडी, शिमला, सोलन, हमारे जो हमीरपुर, ये सब लोग इस एरिया में काफ़ी ज़्यादा बारिश हो रही है, बिलासपुर, तो ये सब जगह छोटे छोटे बड़ी तेज़ बारिश से काफ़ी बड़े लैंडस्लाइड हो रहे हैं जो पहले कभी नहीं थे।
सीएम साहब, ये जो इस साल हुआ है वो कभी देखा नहीं है हिमाचल ने। 1 महीने पहले जो पूरा जान माल था इन टर्म्स ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी थी सर, बहुत ज़्यादा लॉस हुआ था, सड़कें बह गई थी किलोमीटर्स की, पर इतना वहाँ पर फेटैलिटीज़ नहीं हुई थी। उस वक्त आपने कहा था कि सरकार को सोचना चाहिए कि एक नेशनल कैलामिटी का दर्जा दे। आज जब 24 घंटे में 50 के ऊपर मौतें हो गई हैं, तो कैसे मदद मांग रहे हैं कि क्या सरकार को देखना चाहिए, नेशनल कैलामिटी का दर्जा देना चाहिए? अभी आपको सारी मदद मिल रही है सेंटर से सर?
मैं तो पहले ही अनुरोध कर चुका हूं कि इसको नेशनल कैलामिटीज़ का दर्जा देना चाहिए। जिस प्रकार की, क्योंकि ये तो मेन रोड, नेशनल हाईवे, स्टेट रोड, एमडीआर रोड, पंचायतों के सभी रोड बंद है। पहाड़ जब गीले हो जाते, पिछले मार्च अप्रैल से कंटिन्यूसली धीरे धीरे बारिश हो रही है, लगातार बारिश हो रही है। गर्मी का तो इस बार मौसम ही बहुत कम आया है, तो इसलिए अभी जब धूप लगेगी तो कुछ और लहासे गिरते हैं। ये सेटल होने में कम से कम 10 दिन लगेंगे जब धूप अगर पूरी तरह रहेगी। तो मेरा ये है कि इसको नेशनल कैलामिटी का दर्जा देना चाहिए। और पिछली जो केंद्रीय टीम की रिपोर्ट है उसके तहत फटाफट हमें इंटीरियम रिलीफ की पहली किस्त तो जारी होनी चाहिए, ताकि हम रिस्टोरेशन काम को तेजी से कर सके।
2 आखिरी सवाल करूंगी सीएम साहब। जो स्टेट में आपकी भाजपा है, उन्होंने बार बार बोला है कि अनप्रिपेयर्ड थे। पहली बार जब आपदा आई, पहली बार जब बादल फटा, तब सरकार अनप्रिपेयर्ड थी। 1 महीने के बाद फिर ऐसा हुआ है और एक दिन में 50 मौतें हो गई हैं, उसके ऊपर आंकड़ा जाएगा।
नहीं, मुझे ये देखिए, अनप्रिपेयर्ड बारिश के लिए क्या प्रिपेयर्ड चाहिए? लैंडस्लाइड जब आता है तो तेज़ बारिश के बाद आता है। और जो भारतीय जनता पार्टी के जगत प्रकाश नड्डा जी से मेरी बात अभी हुई है, उन्होंने अपने स्टेट के बारे में पूछा है। जो लोकल लोग हैं उनके स्टैंडिंग स्लोगन्स होते हैं, उन्हें इसमें आपदा के समय राजनीति नहीं करनी चाहिए। एक अभी 20 दिन बाद विधानसभा सत्र आएगा, उसमें करनी चाहिए। ये राजनीतिक रोटियां सेकने का वक्त नहीं है, ये जीवन बचाने का वक्त है, ये लड़ाई लड़ने का वक्त है। ये चुनौतियां जो पहाड़ के सामने आई है, हिमाचल प्रदेश के लोगों के सामने आई है, उससे लड़ने का समय है और एकजुटता से लड़ने का समय है। राजनीति करने के लिए हमारे पास अभी 4 साल और है, हर विधानसभा सत्र है। इस समय तो वो किस प्रकार की स्टेटमेंट देके अनप्रिपेयर्ड है, वो खुद नहीं जानते कि जब नदियों में पानी आता है, बारिश को कोई रोक सकता है? कोई ऐसी तकनीक है कहीं कि जो बारिश को रोक सकता है? बारिश तो भगवान के हाथ में है। अब जहाँ बारिश तेज होगी, लैंडस्लाइड आएंगे, पेड़ गिरेंगे, वहाँ कहाँ पेड़ गिरेगा, कहाँ बारिश इतनी तेज होगी, वहाँ कैसे पता लगाएगा? कोई ऐसी साइंटिफिक फार्मूला होता तो मैं भारत सरकार से लेता।
जी।
तो इस प्रकार की बात करके वो राजनीतिक रोटियां सेक कर अपनी तरफ ध्यान आकर्षित करना चाहते हैं। तो ये राज्य के भारतीय जनता पार्टी का ये है। और वहाँ देश के गृह मंत्री राज्य के संवेदना के बारे में पूछ रहे हैं। हमारे हिमाचल प्रदेश के राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष जगत प्रकाश नड्डा जी, वो हमेशा बात कर रहे हैं कि कैसे हिमाचल की स्थिति है, हमारी क्या मदद चाहिए। और ये लोग यहाँ आके ऐसी इस प्रकार की बयानबाजी देकर बारिश को रोकने की बात करते हैं। प्रिपेयर्ड किस चीज़ के लिए होना? बारिश तो कहीं भी आ सकती है, कैसे आ सकती है? कभी इसका फार्मूला पता है कोई?
सीएम साहब, पिछली बार हजारों की तादाद में टूरिस्ट
फार्मूला तो
जी सीएम साहब, पिछली बार हजारों की तादाद में टूरिस्ट फंसे हुए थे। आपने जैसे 15,000 गाड़ियां 2 दिन में निकाली थी मनाली से। इस वक्त क्या बहुत सारे टूरिस्ट हैं जो अभी भी फंसे हुए हैं? क्या उनमें फैटेलिटीज हुई हैं सर?
देखिए, टूरिस्ट हमारी देव संस्कृति हिमाचल प्रदेश के टूरिस्टों को मेहमान मानते हैं। जो फंसे हुए वो सब सेफ है, उनको सब सेफ निकालेंगे, कोई ऐसी बात नहीं। इस बार तो हिमाचल के लोगों के ऊपर ये लैंडस्लाइड्स हुआ है, तो इसलिए हम हिमाचल के लोगों का भी रेस्क्यू कर रहे हैं। अभी रात को भी बैठकर हम ये सोच रहे हैं कि कैसे उनको निकालना है, ताकि एक आधी ज़िंदगी भी बचा सके। ज़िंदगी बचाना हमारा दायित्व भी है और हमारा राज धर्म भी है, कोशिश हमारी है। और भारत सरकार की मिलिट्री भी हमें मदद कर रही है, हमारे आईटीबीपी भी मदद कर रहे हैं, और लोकल लोग और हमारे सभी मिनिस्टर्स अपने डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स में जाकर सारी मदद का जायजा ले रहे हैं। इससे जो हम कर सकते हैं वो हम कर रहे हैं। ये हिमाचल की जनता और आपके जो पत्रकार बंधु हो सब भी आके देख सकते हैं।
सर, ये बात आप बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हैं, क्योंकि ऐसा भी होता है, जो टूरिस्ट हैवी स्टेट्स होती हैं, कि जो लोकल पॉपुलेशन होती है वो सफ़र कर जाती है, सारा फोकस टूरिस्ट पे हो जाता है। तो लोकल्स की मदद इस वक्त पूरी की जा रही है। क्या नंबर्स आपने फ्लैश किए हैं जहां पर लोग रीच आउट कर पाएँ आपको? क्योंकि बारिश अभी लगातार चल रही है और जैसा वेदर डिपार्टमेंट की तरफ से आ रहा है कि अगले 24 घंटे भी चलती रहेगी ऐसे ही।
हमारे डिजास्टर के नंबर है, हमारा 1100 का एक नंबर है जहां आप लगा सकते हैं। लेकिन अभी जो लैंडस्लाइड जो है वो गांव के क्षेत्रों में हुई है। एक क्षेत्र है ममली, वहाँ एक परिवार के 7 लोगों का लैंडस्लाइड हुआ रात के 3 बजे। एक उसमें बचा, मैं उनसे पूछने गया, 3 बजे कहते बहुत तेज़ बारिश हुई जिसके कारण लैंडस्लाइड हुआ और उसमें 7 परिवारों की, तो 7 लोगों की मृत्यु होगी। तो अब उन सब चीज़ों से निपटने की कोशिश की रही है। जिनकी जान बचाई जा सकती है उसकी युद्ध स्तर पर हम जान बचा रहे हैं। सभी प्रकार के हमारे पास जो भी चीज़ें हैं उसको हमने इस्तेमाल कर लिया है।
सुखविंदर सिंह सुक्कू जी, सर बहुत शुक्रिया कि आप हमसे जुड़े, लगातार मीटिंग्स कर रहे हैं, आपने ये 10 मिनट निकाले, पर थैंक यू फॉर जॉइनिंग अस एंड गुड लक सर। इट्स अ हेवी बैटल दैट लाइज अहेड ऑफ यू इन द नेक्स्ट फ्यू डेज टू गेट योर स्टेट बैक ऑन ट्रैक। 50 and counting. That is what the Chief Minister of Himachal has just told us. Over 50 deaths in just the last 24 hours, and he says there are many more. Urging the government to say and judge the calamity as a national calamity. The army is involved, the air force is involved, multiple teams by the NDRF. Let's cut across to our reporters. Manjeet Sehgal and Ankit join me for a quick update. Manjeet, over 50 deaths in 24 hours in the state of Himachal Pradesh, with many, admittedly by the Chief Minister, still stuck.
Yes, Preeti, the figure is continuously rising and it is expected to rise more. But the big question is why these flash floods are taking place and why these rivers are in spate. We spoke to some of the geologists as well. They say unscientific cutting and unchecked cutting of the slopes and while widening the roads, be it the Kalka-Shimla National Highway or be it the Chandigarh-Manali National Highway, is the root cause when the debris and the muck was dumped into the rivers. That also raised the water level. So this is what the geologists told us. But the worst hit are the people who were living in kacha houses, in shanties. The administration does say that they have provided all the amenities to the people who have been displaced, but still many people have been left high and dry. Many roads are closed. Remember, these two national highways have also been blocked by the landslides at various places. That has resulted in short supply of essential items like milk and bread at many places. Roads, as the Chief Minister said, over 1,400 roads are still blocked and damaged. The state is really facing a tough time, though the administration has shut all the schools and colleges for a day, but the rain is continuously taking place and occurring. We are in Mandi, where we can see this entire town has plunged into darkness. There is no power. At many places, the power outages are taking place.
No power, no electricity. I'm going to just come back to you. I want to cut across to Satyendra for a brief comment. Satyendra, right now, as the Chief Minister told us, 15 people still stuck at the Shiv Mandir. And as time passes, their chance of survival also fall. What's the latest that you're picking up in relief and rescue?
देखिए, सबसे पहले तो मैं आपको मौसम का हाल दिखाता हूं, तस्वीर दिखाता हूं कि देखिए किस तरह की बारिश हिमाचल में हो रही है। जो रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन चल रहा है, उस रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन को बार-बार बीच में बंद करना पड़ रहा है। दरअसल इस बारिश की वजह से जिस जगह पर ये ऑपरेशन चल रहा है, वहां पर लगातार लैंडस्लाइडिंग हो रही है। बड़े-बड़े पेड़ हैं। पहाड़ को अगर आप समझेंगे तो आपको समझ में आएगा कि जब इतनी हैवी बारिश हो रही है और एक बार लैंडस्लाइड हो गया है, यानी कि मिट्टी वहां से दरक चुकी है और उस मिट्टी पर बार-बार जो है जब पानी आता है तो वो मिट्टी एक बार फिर से दलदल बनकर नीचे आती है और उसकी वजह से खतरा यह होता है कि यहाँ पर देवदार के ऊंचे-ऊंचे पेड़ हैं, वो पेड़ भी गिर सकते हैं। और पहले से ही चूंकि ये मंदिर एक जो है पहाड़ की नीचे जड़ पे बना हुआ था और उसके नीचे भी गहरी खाई है और सेंटर पॉइंट पर ये मंदिर था और जो मंदिर है जब ये लैंडस्लाइड हुआ तो मंदिर तो खिसक कर नीचे वैली में चला गया, लेकिन उस मंदिर के नीचे एक सराय बनी हुई थी जिसमें लोग पूजा पाठ कर रहे थे। जैसा कि हिमाचल के मुख्यमंत्री ने भी अभी बताया तो उसमें 20 से 25 लोग फंसे हुए थे, 8 शव निकाले जा चुके हैं। तो कुल मिलाकर जो ये मौसम है, तस्वीरें आप देख सकती हैं, शिमला में ही मैं मौजूद हूँ। उस रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन को फिलहाल 3 घंटे के लिए बंद किया गया है और जैसा कि मुख्यमंत्री ने भी अभी बताया था कि अगर ऐसा ही मौसम बना रहा तो जो लोग उसके अंदर फंसे हुए हैं उनके जान के बचने की संभावना
बहुत शुक्रिया सत्येंद्र for joining us. We don't want to sound alarmist, viewers, but the indications or confirmations we are getting in from the hill state of Himachal, the second time in 1 month, but this time in just 24 hours, it's seen over 50 fatalities, 50 people dead and counting. And where the prediction in terms of the weather is concerned, the next 24 hours, Himachal Pradesh is on an orange to a red alert. We're going to keep our cameras focused on the very latest in terms of relief and rescue, but right now, all prayers for the hill state of Himachal Pradesh. A quick break, stay with us. Up next, Rahul Kanwar.
Every NEET coaching class, a student has to shell out almost around 20 lakhs. If you don't have 20 lakhs, then you cannot become a doctor. 10,000 students, you take 10,000 students who have qualified for NEET, 9,999 students would have gone for a coaching class. The rest, the half of them would have made a repeated attempt. This would have been their second or third attempt. then only you will be able to clear NEET. We are asking why this? Why do we require NEET at all? And the Chief Minister has also pointed out against the duplicitous claim of the governor. The governor is responsible for what is happening in the state of Tamil Nadu. The BJP and the RSS cabal, which is there, has shoved NEET down our throats. We are saying we don't want it. See, the governor his treachery has laid bare. He has confessed. He has confessed on camera yesterday. He has said that this falls under the concurrent list. Therefore, I have sent it to the president for her assent. But he has sat on that bill for 6 months. If he had known that this is a matter belonging to the concurrent list and he has got nothing to do with, why should he hold that bill for 6 months? 6 valuable months have been lost because of this constitutional crime committed by the governor. Why is he doing this? Because he wants to impose Sanatana Dharma against the will of the people of Tamil Nadu. That is the problem here. That is why we are opposing NEET.
It's always fun to see one of your favorite celebrities become a showstopper for these couturiers, and a lot of Bollywood made its way to the Couture Week this year in Delhi. Right from Ranbir Kapoor to Bhumi Pednekar, Ananya Pandey, Kiara Advani, Vani Kapoor, you name it, and they graced the runway. Here is all the celebrity action.
The 16th edition of India Couture Week, organized by FTCI, saw Bollywood celebrities turn showstoppers. Right from Ranbir Kapoor to Kiara Advani, one saw a plethora of celebrities spruce up the runway.
I feel like a golden girl. I feel very glamorous, but I also feel very comfortable, and I always have a great time working with Rimzim. And it's always there's lots of chaotic energy at Fashion Week, but somehow I managed to keep my calm, I think.
It's a beautiful, beautiful embroidered jacket, and they decided to go without the shirt with this really interesting tie. They have a nice little emblem on it, and I think it's elegant and cool and suave and new all at once.
It feels like it's just growing on my body, the textile, the fabric. It's so sexy. I love the way it hugs my curves. It just makes me feel strong, like I can conquer anything.
It's about imagination coming to life. Literally about imagination coming to life. And for that, I mean, just look at this. We can literally sit here and stare at it.
While the focus is never on the celebrities, but the celebration of art and craft in India, it never really hurts to see celebrities glam up the runway. Indian influencers spruced up the front rows. Bahar Dhawan to Sukhneet Vadhva, there were plenty of them adding glamour.
So, I mean, I was literally like, oh my God, what a moment for us. Such great designs, the intricate work, absolutely stunning collection.
In New Delhi with Ria Modi, Lifestyle Bureau, India Today.
The bout between governor and government in Tamil Nadu entered another round. It's Stalin Sarkar versus governor of Tamil Nadu 2.0. Tamil Nadu governor has reignited NEET debate. DMK has called him a mere rubber stamp. Take a look.
The Tamil Nadu political tussle between the governor and the Stalin government has entered another round.
I am telling you very frankly, I will never give clearance to NEET. Let it be very clear.
This time, both sides have locked horns over the National Eligibility Cum Entrance Test, or the NEET, which deals with all India pre-medical entrance examination. Tamil Nadu Governor R.N. Ravi has asserted that if it was up to him, he would never have given a nod to the Stalin government's controversial anti-need bill, which is with the president.
I am telling you very frankly, I will never give clearance to meet. Let it be very clear. Anyway, it has gone to the president because it's a subject of concurrent list. It is a subject of which only the president is competent to give the clearance. But given to me, I shall never give it. Be sure about it. Because I like my children to go. And I tell you for sure, there are many students who are doing it without coaching.
The ruling DMK, which has an ongoing feud with the governor, called R.N. Ravi a rubber stamp and accused him of constitutional impropriety.
Who is this governor to give approval? Who is he thinking he is? Is he elected by the people? What role has he got as per the constitution? Does he think he is a governor in British India? He is a governor in a democratic run country. He is a governor as per our constitutional democracy, as per the constitution. It is the duty. It is mandatory on the part of the governor. He is a rubber stamp.
NEET has been a contentious issue in Tamil Nadu, where a section sees the entrance exam as discriminatory in nature against students from government schools and from rural backgrounds. Stalin government wants class 12th marks to be the deciding factor for admission for medical seats. The bill proposed by it envisions a 7.5% quota provision for government school students in medical colleges. The war of words comes amid a face-off over scam-tainted DMK minister Senthil Balaji, who is arrested and grilled by the ED. Senthil Balaji was arrested on June 14th in a money laundering case initiated by the probe agency based on the cash for job cases registered by the Central Crime Branch Police. Following which, Tamil Nadu Governor R.N. Ravi dismissed Balaji as minister, but Stalin retained Balaji as a minister without portfolio. On 12th August, after 5 days of questioning by the Enforcement Directorate, Balaji was sent to judicial custody till August 25th. The latest round in the Stalin-Ravi rip-up is set to further stir political slugfest in the state of Tamil Nadu. Bureau Report, India Today.
Hello and welcome, and I hope you're getting set for what should be a fantastic Independence Day. Is there a single Indian who isn't moved to tears when they hear India's beautiful national anthem? As we celebrate our 76th Independence Day, we are so proud to bring you Jana Gana Man in a way Indians have only dreamed about. Our anthem in a way never heard before. Because at the India Today group, we know that you, our viewers, are just like us, constantly looking for ways that technology can showcase our rich history and bring it alive in ways never imagined before.
Absolutely, Rahul, and that is why this Independence Day, the India Today group has decided to embrace cutting-edge tools to showcase the most soul-stirring elements of our country's founding. A sight that could so far exist only probably in a billion imaginations, now reimagined through AI. We will show you what our anthem would have sounded like, sung by those men and women that gave this country birth. India Today is on a path from which there is no return. What you're about to watch is the amazing union of two worlds, our glorious past and a promising future. As we move as one into Amrit Kal, rise with us for India's most sacred words sung by the truly immortal.
Let us rise for our national anthem.
Jana Gana Mana Adhinayak Jaya He Bharat Bhagya Vidhata Punjab Sindh Gujarat Maratha Dravida Utkal Banga Vindhya Himachal Yamuna Ganga Uchchal Jaladhi Taranga Tava Shubh Naam Ye Jage Tava Shubh Ashish Mange Gahe Tab Jaya Gatha Jada Gada Mangal Dayak Jaya He Bharat Bhagya Vidhata Jaya He
Presented by RP Sanjeev Goenka Group, Growing Legacies.
Co-presented by Century Laminates by Manish Malhotra, fashion for your furniture.
Co-presented by Macho Hind, बड़े आराम से.
Co-powered by the new Kia Seltos, the badass reborn. Co-powered by PolicyBazaar.com, हर family होगी insured. Co-powered by Nippon India Mutual Fund. Wealth sets you free.
Good evening and welcome. You're watching the news track. I'm Rahul Kamal. The Modi government making massive changes to the Indian legal system. What does the Bharatiya Nyay Sahita really mean for you, the citizen? This is the biggest change in Indian laws in the last several decades. How does this impact your life? Are these laws going to make things easier, or is this just a way for the government to try and impose greater control? All that and more in the big India Today Lawyers Roundtable coming up on the news track.
एक ऐतिहासिक निर्णय इस सरकार ने किया है, राजद्रोह को कंप्लीटली हम रिपील कर रहे हैं.
Big revamp of India's criminal laws.
1860, 1898 और 1872 में अंग्रेजों द्वारा बनाए गए, अंग्रेजों की संसद के द्वारा पारित किए गए ये तीनों कानूनों को समाप्त कर आज हम तीनों नए कानून पुरस्कृत करने के लिए मैं आया हूं.
Colonial era laws overhauled. Super boost of criminal justice. New crime code for new India.
ये कानूनों का उद्देश्य किसी को दंड देना नहीं होगा. इन कानूनों का उद्देश्य सबको न्याय देना.
Big changes and their impact decoded. Big focus on News Track.
Before I get into the Lawyers Roundtable on the new laws, let me take you through the headlines I'm tracking today. Maha-Aghadi split wide open after Sharad Pawar meets his nephew Ajit again. Pawar Senior dismisses reports of him joining the NDA. India gives China another big headache. Frontline airbase in Ladakh's Nyoma gets a new life. This is an India Today exclusive news break. Over 50 dead in the last 24 hours in the Himachal rain rampage. Several still trapped after a Shiv temple collapses in Shimla. Shocking double suicide in Chennai. NEET aspirant's father dies by suicide days after his son's death. Politics erupts. DMK blames the BJP and the government. Gali politics erupts again after calling pro-BJP voters monsters. Congress Neta Surjewala attacks Prime Minister Modi, says he is an asura.
अरे राक्षसों, भाजपा जजप्पा के राक्षस हो तुम लोग. भारतीय जनता पार्टी को जो वोट देता है और भारतीय जनता पार्टी का जो समर्थक है वो राक्षस प्रवृत्ति का व्यक्ति है.
The Modi government has introduced a massive revamp of India's criminal laws. It's a new crime code that is supposed to be refined and ensure speedy justice. Changes have been made to the laws on sedition, gang rape, mob lynching, and a gamut of other issues. What are the key changes that the three new laws entail? And most importantly, how do they impact you? Law Today tries to decode the changes that are now on the anvil.
In a surprise twist at the end of the monsoon session of Parliament on Friday, the centre completely revamped and replaced three historical laws that were the backbone of the criminal justice system in India. The Indian Penal Code, the Code of Criminal Procedure, and the Indian Evidence Act all stand to be replaced with new laws.
राजद्रोह पर ये अंग्रेजों ने अपने शासन को बचाने के लिए एक कानून बना था. मैं इस सदन को कहना चाहता हूं, एक ऐतिहासिक निर्णय इस सरकार ने किया है. राजद्रोह को कंप्लीटली हम रिपील कर रहे हैं. यहां लोकतंत्र है, सबको बोलने का अधिकार है. राजद्रोह को हम कंप्लीटली रिपील कर रहे हैं मान्यवर। गैंग रेप के सभी मामलों में 20 साल की सजा या आजीवन कारावास का प्रावधान किया है, जो आज नहीं है। 18 वर्ष से कम आयु की बच्चियों के मामले में मृत्यु दंड का भी प्रावधान। मॉब लिंचिंग का बड़ा शोर मचा है, हमने उसको केयरफुली करा है। मॉब लिंचिंग के लिए भी 7 साल आजीवन कारावास और मृत्युदंड तीनों का प्रोविजन कर हम प्रावधान मान्यवर लाए। शिकायतकर्ता और गवाह।
Here's how the changes are likely to impact the common citizens of India.
वो भी होगा।
The new law allows for registration of an FIR in any police station, irrespective of where the crime is committed. It also allows citizens to file e-FIRs. The police will have to maintain a proper system of sharing information via establishment of a police control room. Once the charge sheet is filed by the police, the court has a 60-day window to frame the charges in the case and begin the trial. Once the trial in the case is completed, the judge is duty-bound to pronounce the verdict within 30 days. Not only do the new bills propose more stringent punishments in case of rape and gang rape, they also attempt to ease the legal process for survivors of sexual assault. The statement of a sexual assault survivor would now be recorded in her home by a woman magistrate in the presence of a woman police officer. The law also makes it an offence for anyone to disclose the identity of a survivor of sexual assault.
Is it an overhaul? Perhaps not entirely. Is it an improvement? Hopefully, yes. But is there a lot to be done? Yes, there is still a lot to be done. Speaking for myself, what I would have envisaged as an overhaul, which is essential now for the criminal justice administration in this country, is to have all your central criminal laws in one code. Everything. Make it facile, make it logical for the investigator, make it logical for the practitioner, and make it logical for the judiciary.
Now, the not-so-good changes. As the law stands currently, any person who has been arrested can be sent to police custody only for a maximum of 15 days from the date of arrest. In the proposed law, however, the powers of the police to seek police custody have been expanded, where the police can now seek this 15-day custody at any time within 60 to 90 days of the arrest, depending on the offence. There is no relief for a common man when it comes to a grant of bail and enforcing. Bail is the rule and jail is an exception through means of proper law. No new options for default bail has been given, except for under trials who have served at least half their sentence. The new law allows the court to proceed with the trial if 90 days have elapsed since framing of the charges, and the accused has still not appeared before the court. The new law explicitly allows digital devices such as phones, laptops, etc. to be seized during an investigation. Emails, messages, server logs, location details will all be included as part of electronic evidence admissible in a court of law. The massive legal upgrade will replace colonial-era criminal laws, a new refined, speedy and people-first crime code for New India. With Nalini Sharma, Bureau Report, India Today.
So what does this Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita or the new IPC mean for you? How does your life change? Remember, these laws impact every one of us. Are these genuinely a step in the right direction? Do they simplify the old cumbersome legal procedure, or does it just allow the government to play Big Brother even more so? Joining us on the news track, I want to welcome Aman Lekhi, senior advocate in the Supreme Court. Siddharth Luthra is with us, another senior advocate from Additional Solicitor General of India. Sanjay Hegde joins us as well, senior advocate in the Supreme Court, and I'll be joined by Abhishek Singhvi in just a moment. I have Nalini Sharma, she heads India Today's Law Today division. So I want to go across to Aman Lekhi first. Most people watching at this time would not have had an opportunity to go through the commas and the full stops of the new law. from what you've gathered and from what's in the public domain, Mr. Lekhi, could you lay the context for this debate by telling us whether you think the changes in the laws taken together are a step in the right direction, and if so, to what extent? Let's start from there. Aman Lekhi.
Well, I find the Home Minister maligning the existing system, slandering it and running it down, which in my opinion is completely unwarranted. It's a very simplistic assertion based only on one aspect of the penal code, that is 1860, to say that it's the colonial legacy. It is not a colonial legacy because insofar as the method of criminal administration is concerned, there are certain standardized approaches. There's an adversarial method and inquisitorial method. As for the Indian law is concerned, it's got elements of both. While combining elements of both methods, there are certain constitutional values which are present. The constitutional values affirm individual liberty. We have in our legal system presumption of innocence. We also have in our legal system a right to silence. We have an open adversarial system. We have open courts. And insofar as the administration is concerned, that is modern and the jurisprudence is current. So for the Home Minister to say that it's a revamp because we are undoing a colonial legacy shows a complete disconnect with reality, which is completely unwarranted, and it needlessly disparages the system and will create some kind of view about the existing legal system to create some unrest about it, which in my opinion is completely unwarranted too. I also feel that the method in which they brought it about is unthinking. I'll give an example where this is concerned. You have mentioned two things in this. I just happened to read whatever I read in the newspapers. One, mob lynching. Mob lynching is punishable with 7 years imprisonment. Mob lynching is murder. It's an aggravated form of murder. And mob lynching is concerned, you don't only look at the people indulging in mob lynching, you look at the people responsible for enforcement of the law. We will deal with bystanders, deal with others. It's an aggravated form of murder. For an aggravated form of murder, you have a less punishment. You talk about sedition. I am very much in favor of sedition, but that's not an issue right now. Sedition has the expression subversive activities. Subversive activities along with secession and other activities. Now, subversion is an element of secession. If you have subversion apart from secession, what will subversion contain? So it's an expansive definition which enlarges the scope of interference which is there in involvement. As far as aspects are concerned, the method in which this has been brought about, I have a very strong reservation that is concerned. If this is well thought out, it should have been in the list of legislation which the government should have brought. It shouldn't have been part of the supplementary legislation. So what does that show? I feel that is an attention diverting device, because you bring a bill, the bill is not law, the bill goes to standing committee, the standing committee's recommendation is not binding on the parliament, the matter goes into limbo, we are discussing something which is not the law today, which will never be the law, and the law which stands today is discredited. This is no way how a government should work.
Wow, those are strong, scathing opening comments from Aman Lekhi. Let me go across to Sanjay Hegde. You're saying it'll never be the law. I wonder why you say that. I'll come back to you in a moment. Let me just get some opening comments from everybody else as well. Sanjay Hegde, you just heard Aman Lekhi taking apart the very premise behind which this law has been introducing. There was no need. The fact that the Indian legal system as it stands is cumbersome, and while Aman Lekhi put up a strong defense for the way things are, many watching at this time would agree that if things are simpler, faster, speedier, more effective, justice would be better served. What's your view on the manner in which the change is being brought and the need for the change, and the extent to which, once and if these changes are implemented, the legal system, will it be better than the past?
Well, firstly, I do agree with Aman that this has been brought suddenly. And for that, the best proof is the draft itself. It's an incomplete draft full of legislative howlers. Your basic question on sedition. Sedition has been replaced with Section 150, acts endangering sovereignty, unity and integrity of India. Now, if I were to read it out, for instance, or by electronic communication, or by use of financial mean, when you actually mean means by financial means, then you have an explanation which is entirely which is incomplete. Comments expressing disapprobation of the measures or administrative or other action with a view to obtain their alteration by lawful means without exciting or attempting to excite the activities referred to in this section. Full stop. Do not come within the mischief of this section, or you say that this is not covered. incomplete sentences, half written, wrong words, and they are galore. There is a plagiarism device called Turnitin, which lots of law schools use. Somebody ran put this on Turnitin, and 83% of it is copied from the existing Indian Penal Code. What has happened is a shuffling of sections. The 17% which could have, if you've changed, you might as well have brought in an amendment act to the Indian Penal Code. I don't know what the reason was. You wanted to have something called Bharatiya, something this. Fine. Have a vision. Whatever work you submit to Parliament, please have the decency to submit a complete draft before it goes to the Parliamentary Committee. It looks like a half-complete draft was suddenly pulled out of the Legislative Department and shoved down Parliament's throat. Now let me tell you why Aman says that it may never become the law. It now goes to a Parliamentary Committee, and the Parliamentary Committee obviously will have to put all this together. Now there are maybe 2 or 3 sessions of Parliament, of this Parliament. This is an act, these acts have been brought in the Lok Sabha. By the time it comes up for passing in this Lok Sabha, we do not know whether it will happen or not. Otherwise, this will lapse. If it becomes the law, then also people have warned about not only such an overbroad section of subversive activities, all this that I've told you so far could very well qualify as subversive activity. So we are going to have a generation of lawyers and judges breaking their heads over something that could have been avoided with a little bit of care at the legislative stage.
Okay, let me get Nalini's perspective on the reasons that the government has stated for bringing this law. Now, I understand both from Aman and Sanjay's perspective, everything that they've learned, all the sections that they know and have referred to as second nature now need to be unlearned and relearned. That's irritating and complicated. But from the government's perspective, what is it that they're hoping to achieve, Nalini?
Well, Rahul, whatever is it that the government is hoping to achieve, I don't understand why it could not be done by way of an amendment. So that the things that were there in the existing IPC, CRPC, like Mr. Sanjay Hegde says, that almost 85% of it has been picked up from the existing laws. So the changes that the government wanted to bring about could have been done by way of an amendment, which would have made things easier, not just for the lawyers who, like you correctly said, will have to unlearn and relearn, but also for the judges. Every time that a lawyer now references to a particular section, the judge might not know what he is talking about. He'll have to go back to the bare act. He'll have to see what section it is. So instead of the objective of the government, which is to expedite the proceeding, it might prolong the proceeding even more, because there'll be a significant time that both the bench as well as the bar is going to take to get accommodated to this.
Okay, let me get Siddharth Luthra's take on this, all these changes which are being described as a massive overhaul of the judicial system, legal system. We are hearing 2 top lawyers say that it seems to have been brought about in haste, may not actually see the system being improved, seeks to discredit the system. Where do you come out on this, Siddharth?
This exercise has been undertaken for a while, and there has been an attempt to make the Indian Penal Code a little more comprehensive. They've added terrorist offences, corruption offences, snatching, organized crime, and they've taken the definition clauses and they've put them in one provision to make it perhaps easier to read. What I find on the reading is some of the illustrations also and examples have been updated, but what I find is that essentially it is a reworking of the time and tested code. Other nations have also done this exercise. So the Indian Penal Code as it stood has been used as a template which has been modified by other nations to perhaps domesticize it a little. It has been spoken of to, to get rid of the colonial legacy. But if you look at this substantively, let's look at the definition of, let's say, culpable homicide or murder. It's substantially the same. Hurt, grievous hurt is substantially the same. And some concerns of the legislature in terms of additional offences have been added. So that's so far as the Indian Penal Code is concerned. Then you have, for me, speaking for myself, one of the concerns that arises from this is that by adding organized crime, by adding terrorist offences, by adding corruption offences. You are bring them in this code, in this Sanhita, but you are not removing the provisions or the laws which contain these. That is, for example, Maharashtra Control of Organized Crime Act. You've not removed the Prevention of Corruption Act or the provisions in the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Then again, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act offences are investigated by NIA. So there is going to be a peculiar interface between this legislation and the NIA Act, and that is not being dealt with in the procedural law as well.
Okay, Aman Lekhi, one of the things which was said was that sedition has been done away with, but if you see the fine print, provisions which amount to actually dealing with offences similar to sedition still exist even in the new law. So is it actually doing away with sedition, which is what the government had publicly said it intends to do, or is it just finding another way of inserting virtually the same provisions without calling it sedition? Aman Lekhi?
You see, sedition, it's amusing to read that particular provision. It's hilarious. It just shows the lack of seriousness in drafting important provisions and complete want of professionalism and understanding both of law and language. There is a grammatical error in it. The semicolon is at a place it shouldn't be, and apart from the fact that the English is wanting altogether, the most substantial issue here is the use of the expression subversive activity, which I said at the beginning. Now, what is subversive activity? Subversive activity can have a very wide connotation. It can be open, it can be secret, it can be violent, it can be peaceful, it may be ideological, it may be political, it may be criminal. What is subversion? The subversion, you go to read the mind of the person who is invoking the law, or this is an objective standard by which apply the law. If you want to substitute a provision by another provision, you have to set out the standards for the purpose of application of that provision. And then that is the prime obligation of a penal provision, so as to put people to notice as to what kind of culpable conduct will actually be recognized as punishable. If you look at this particular definition, it lacks that particular direction altogether. I don't joke when I say it's the poor English. Point is, that's the language in which the offence is drafted, and therefore the means to understand it. Both in law and in language, this position is wanting. Now here, the duplicity of the government becomes obvious. The government was very keen, and rightly, I am in favor of sedition personally, I may be in minority, I think sedition is necessary for a country, but be that as it may, that's aside. The government defended sedition. The government said that sedition is necessary. Now when you bring about this particular change to alter the law, in my opinion, there is no need to alter the law itself. For public acceptability, you say that sedition is diluted, but the provision which is there expands that particular offence, and while expanding the profession is without the limitation and the protection of the old one. So we're in a worse situation now than we were earlier.
Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi joins us, senior Congress leader, one of the top jurists in the country. Dr. Singhvi, you know, we are hearing from the likes of Aman Lekhi, Sanjay Hegde, Siddharth Luthra, raising questions about the manner in which the new changes have been brought about and what this means for the legal system. As a top jurist, if you try and put your political hat on the side for a moment, do you think that these changes actually simplify, de-jargonize and potentially speed up the Indian judicial process?
There is somebody competing in the voice system with me, Rahul, but that apart, I think I would hate anybody to speak in a broad, blanket political manner on a matter like this. It requires a nitty-gritty analysis. Let me say at the outset, anyone and everyone, including myself, is really giving a more superficial and tentative view, because here you have three big acts, one totaling 356 sections, another 533 sections, and a third 170. To be able to compare the changes of the current with the old, to be able to analyze them and to give you a very good analytical, comprehensive answer, I think is beyond the reach of most, including geniuses, and I don't pretend to be one. So I think we must be very careful, and I think it must await a more detailed analysis. I'm writing an article on this also in the near future, which will be a little more pointed and better than today. But having given that disclaimer at the outset, can I tell you a few of 3 or 4 points which I think stare you in the face and don't make very good reading? And I have nothing to do with politics when I speak about 3 acts. First, I am very disappointed at one thing. I don't think it has struck anybody that a change, if it is done for minor things or just for the sake of change of such a nature, after all, one of them tinkers and touches 175 sections of the old IPC, the Bharatiya Sanhita, the Nyaya Sanhita. It touches and amends little or more 175 sections. The CRPC counterpart, the Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita, touches 160. And the third one touches almost 23 or 30, the counterpart of the Evidence Act. Now, the point I'm making is when you tinker with existing statutes, you lead to an explosion of litigation. Unintended, unplanned, unanticipated, unforeseen. Everything in the past technically gets erased. Each section has 100 case law. Now, it is open to clever lawyers and even cleverer litigants to say that established judgments, established jurisprudence should be ignored and you should reinvent the wheel and decide de novo because the section is new. You cannot imagine the kind of explosion of litigation this will lead to, a thing which is completely forgotten, point 1. Point 2, sedition is a big, big disappointment. Indeed, I would say it's a fraud on power. I just heard some of my friends in the last part, but I would like to add to what they are saying. The section, and I will not read it to bore your viewers, I've got it in front of me. It was earlier challenged and a statement was made in the Supreme Court that for the time being we will not activate it, we will not use it. Now, the version you have now is far vaguer, far broader, and far more all-encompassing, which are the 3 precise reasons why this whole crusade against sedition was on in our country, and which is the reason why the Supreme Court was about to give a stay, but desisted when the government said, for the time being, we will not act on this existing 124A. Now, this is actually a fraud on power because this is very vague, apart from all the grammatical and the English errors. I am saying that this is really not bringing in sedition from the back door. It is enhancing and enlarging sedition with many more unintended things, giving it much more power, and shows the mindset of what I call at the moment a clear control freak impulse. And they've done it very surreptitiously, in fact, over cleverly, disingenuously, while on the left side pretending not to do it, on the right side actually bringing it. The Home Minister specifically made a statement that we've done away with sedition. Well, that may be technically true, but a half-truth like Ashwathama Hato is much worse than a lie.
Can this be taken, Dr. Singhvi, as a first draft which then goes to the Parliament Standing Committee where it gets refined, and by the time it comes to Parliament, like with the privacy law, some of the concerns raised by privacy advocates, members of the opposition, are factored in? While it may still not be perfect from the opposition's point of view, from the legal fraternity's point of view, it's better than what the government has tabled at the moment.
Well, you're certainly right. That's the theoretical and practical object of committees. I have myself been and am now the chairman of a parliamentary standing committee and have been of 2 earlier. There is a greater degree of convergence and unanimity. Select committees are even broader. But the point is, ultimately in today's divided atmosphere, you realize, can you hear me?
I hear you well. Go on, please.
You realize as much as I do that political division means a lot of things go by a majority. And the majority on this is of the ruling party. And there are instructions, I know for a fact, in parliamentary committees not to go against the political line taken by the ruling party. I hope and trust what you're saying is true. But that brings me to my other 2 or 3 points very quickly, Rahul. One is, what was the level of consultation before such a wide-ranging set of provisions and acts? You are told that in 2020, in the middle of COVID, a 4 or 5 person committee, all males, no diversity, no females, was constituted. Their public consultation after 2020 for 1.5 years of COVID thereafter was 0. Nothing is public. You're not told. And you're not told the recommendations of the committee also. You're not told what was the degree of consultation. Normally, on this kind of issue, you would have 2 or 3 law commission reports, one each on one of the each of the code which you're talking about. There is no law commission on this. and a committee is quickly set up shrouded in secrecy, and you are told that you've consulted just because 2020 to 23 has passed. My other point is a very retrogressive thing which has gone through, which I don't know if you've noticed. 15-day police remand is now, I am told, in the nature of 60 or 90 days, depending on the offense. You already know what is happening, Rahul, in terms of remands, police custody. You already know the kind of things happening, extraction, pressures, harassment. 15 days has stood the test of time. You should make it 14 days, not 60 or 90. I don't understand how it is. Now, there are, of course, some good things. I think the community service part is a good move. I would like it to be enlarged and expanded beyond petty offences.
No, but it doesn't explain, from what I've gathered, what a community service would actually entail, which could potentially mean that different judges could read it in different ways, and we could have all kinds of things happening in the name of community service.
So I was coming to that. Devil and God both lie in the details. I hope and trust that the rules will flesh it out. I'm only saying in principle this is a good thing, but it doesn't mean that you can allow it to be, its broadness and its vagueness to be exploited by vested interests so that you get easy community service and I get rigorous imprisonment. You know, this is the kind of thing which has to be fleshed out, but in principle it's a good move. Mob lynching, in theory, is a good provision, but then you have to realize that it depends on fair prosecution. It depends on social construct. You see the statistics, Rahul. Mob lynching as a fact of life has increased exponentially since 2014 in numbers. What does it lead to? By its very nature, it does not lead to fair prosecution. Certain people have the upper hand. So there's no point making a nice sounding provision which in its application may lead to acquittals or not real prosecution or catching hold of the victim rather than the perpetrators. These are realities which we have seen in the last few years. And I hope and trust that this will go through a very, very careful, close scrutiny, not merely by party majorities, and at least a large part of it will be sanitized and addressed when it comes back to Parliament.
Okay, I'll leave it with you over there. Thank you very much, Dr. Singhvi, for joining us. Sanjay Hegde, can it be said from the government's perspective that here is, I don't want to say a cabal of lawyers, but like a community of lawyers who are used to the system being a certain way, and therefore to protect their own interests, they're taking the position that they are?
There's nothing, listen, most of us lawyers will have armies of other lawyers under us to tell us what to say.
No, but 320 is no longer 320 and 420 is no longer 420, so there's a lot of relearning involved as well.
That's okay. We can learn fast enough. The question is, as Dr. Singhvi put it, a whole host of precedents which define what murder is or what is to happen in a given circumstance. Now, please look at it. When, for instance, I'll give you, when do you file an application for discharge? You file an application for discharge after the evidence is put in, and you say that the evidence doesn't make out a case. Now, what does the new Samhita provide? The accused may prefer an application for discharge within a period of 60 days from the date of framing of the charges. Now, that is some kind of, what shall we say, put the cart before the horse or after the horse. The court says that there is material to frame charges against you. After that, you go and file an application for discharge, and then the court gets into that. This is, I think that if they had run their drafts through teams of lawyers, we would have volunteered for national service, saying, boss, look, this is the problem, this is the problem, here is the problem, why don't you come back? It appears that a few consultants were hired, somebody was told to draft it, some kind of general consultation happened, and they possibly thought that there were going to be more consultations. But now a half-baked draft has been thrown into the nation's face, and we are told that, look, forget Macaulay, you Macaulay Putras. Macaulay drafted the IPC, therefore it is bad. Sometimes I'm reminded of what Shelley said, that poets are the unacknowledged legislators of mankind. We had a draft, we had the IPC, which was a model, as somebody else said, for several countries. The IPC is common to most of the sections between India and Pakistan, as far as the penal code are concerned, are very common. This is part of our heritage. This is part of the legal system. Yes, procedurally, certain things have been sought to be improved, but even there, I showed you what's happened on the discharge provision.
Okay, Siddharth Luthra, how do you respond to all the criticism that we're hearing? This is some kind of black magic had the government pulling this out without adequate discussion and deliberation, that this is being done in a hidden and opaque fashion. How do you respond to this criticism, and what do you think can be done to try and make the changes palatable and acceptable?
I think these are questions parliamentarians should answer, and it is a debate between different political entities. I am not competent to answer such an issue, but the point is this: to have meaningful reform, there will have to be discussion. I am hopeful that now the matter has gone to the standing committee, there will be meaningful debate and consideration, and what will come back from the standing committee will be a much improved version. Look, any change in the law, any change in the procedural, substantive or evidentiary law is important for the evolution of a nation's criminal justice system. But I feel that this administration had a golden opportunity and they could have done a lot more. I'll leave it at that.
But Aman Lekhi, some of the things that have been sought to be introduced, for example, witness protection, are changes that the Indian legal system has been clamoring for a long time. And is there a way in which we can implement the reforms which are genuine steps in the right direction and try and address the concerns as well, find a happy middle ground? Is that possible in your view?
No, absolutely. But you don't need to have wholesale a repeal of the existing law, demeaning of their worth, and suggestion that this is a liberating exercise. I have my very serious objection, and I will not in any way hold back on my criticism, like Siddharth is saying. I think this requires all-rounded, comprehensive and trenchant criticism of the government. As far as reform is concerned, it's not the first attempt at reform. There have been various committees. We have law commissions also in place. We have got judicial determinations wherein the courts have also pitched in, talking about changes that have taken place. To bring about changes, law is dynamic. It's open to reform and interpretation. It is open to modification. There is no objection to that. But the point is, the process has to be measured, and the test is of legitimacy is not just a vote in Parliament. I have got a very strong objection that is concerned. It is reduced to a vote in Parliament, whether through the standing committee method or legislative measures. This is a comprehensive legislation, the core of the penal system. Insofar as the change has to be brought about, the change cannot possibly be through 3 bills surreptitiously brought at a time when we were discussing other issues of national importance. If matters of this import are to be brought, they have to be debated prior and later, not kept and sent to the standing committee and just kept on the shelf for the time being. It just shows that the purpose is not reform. The purpose is distraction. You are all discussing something which is not the law. We are discussing something which may never be the law. And while discussing that, we are not discussing something which should be relevant to the current situation. So the question I'm putting to myself is, if it's a matter of this importance, why was it presented in this particular manner? Why was it shelved by sending it to the committee? And was the real objective actually reform, or the objective behind that was simply a diversion? Because it seems more of a diversionary tactic than a very realistic attempt at reform.
Okay, Nalini, what happens next? This goes to a standing committee. Does it come back in time for the winter session? Because one of the concerns is whether this will come back before the next general election at all, because then you have the budget session, which is a truncated session, and then there are elections. So do we have a timeline for what happens next?
Well, the government is certainly hoping that it's going to come back in time for the winter session.
But can it, because of the 8 disagreements, the kind of consultation that will be required for bills of this magnitude?
Well, in my opinion, possibly not, because there's going to be a lot of pushback, mainly because there were no consultations that were really held before this law was introduced. So there's going to be a lot of pushback from within the legal community against these laws and against the changes that have been introduced. In addition to that, in case this law is now challenged before the Supreme Court, even if it comes by the time of the winter session, if it's challenged before the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court starts looking into the matter, then it might go on for a much longer time than what we expect for. But the reason why there are certain aspersions that can be cast on the government's intent over here is because there was, like somebody stated, they had a lot of golden opportunity to make changes, especially with regard to very real problems that India has been facing. They could have brought in a law against hate speech, which has become a flashpoint just in the past few months. But we've seen no law on hate speech, despite the fact that they say that they've brought in a law against mob lynching. We see no law on the aspect of grant of default bail, despite the fact that the government acknowledges that prisons are overcrowded. There are a lot of people under trials who are still locked in the prisons.
You know, the reason I set up this roundtable is to pick some of the minds, the finest lawyers, on where they stand on the current laws. Remember, we also reached out to a lot of the lawyers in the BJP. None of them for this show agreed to come. However, as this debate builds, hopefully we will hear from the government. They can explain their perspectives. For the time being, you've heard from the likes of Aman Lekhi, Sanjay Hegde, you've heard from Siddharth Luthra, Abhishek Singhvi. Nalini and her team will track these changes very, very carefully. This requires a conversation because these are massive changes. They impact every one of us. They impact the Indian legal and judicial system as it stands. And as you heard, a lot of the past judgments and the context in which that they've been given, what happens to that going forward? So a lot to chew on. These are big changes. Can they be pushed through? The government has sent this to a committee, so it will be debated. We'll track what happens there. I want to thank all of you for joining us on the news track. We're slipping into a break. When we come back, India aiming to give China another headache. Frontline airbase in Ladakh's Nyoma gets a new life. This is an India Today exclusive news break from near the line of actual control. Details on the other side.
Volunteers of Vishwa Manav Ruhani Kendra, inspired by their spiritual head, Sant Baljit Singh Ji, are diligently serving the devotees of Mahadev during Shri Amarnath Yatra. The difficult terrain of Yatra is no deterrence to the indomitable spirit of volunteers. VMRK has set up 2 medical camps along the Yatra route on Barari Baltal and Domil Baltal Marg. The medical team of 20 members, including MD and MBBS doctors, pharmacists and nurses, is serving devotees on their way to the holy cave. Round-the-clock medical facilities are being provided in these camps, and so far around 9,300 patients have availed the facility. For the first time in the history of Shri Amarnath Yatra, VMRK has deployed a 4x4 vehicle ambulance, significantly reducing the transportation time for critical patients, transporting more than 50 patients to date. Stretcher service in the area not accessible to vehicles has been made available on the special request of local administration. Ambulances at Chandanwadi and Baltal are fully equipped with life-saving equipments and medicines. Vishwa Manav Ruhani Kendra is a non-profit charitable society based at Nawanagar district, Panchkula, Haryana, and has been serving the humanity since year 2005. VMRK has 240 retreat centers all over India, actively undertaking spiritual and charitable services by supporting students, orphans, sick and elderly. All these activities are carried by the motivation of Sant Baljit Singh Ji.
The 19th round of India-China co-commander talks have concluded in Chushul. And while both sides discuss disengagement in eastern Ladakh, India has given China another major headache. A new Air Force base in Neoma at over 13,000 feet. The new air base can operate fighter aircraft, radars and upgraded drones for enhancing surveillance in the Ladakh sector.
Into the India-China standoff in Ladakh, India is ready to put China even more on notice. From modern weapons to infrastructure, the Modi government is leaving no stone unturned now to check Chinese expansionist designs and pile the pressure on that country. As part of an India Today national exclusive, we now tell you about a new fighter aircraft base is now emerging where an old helicopter base once stood in Neoma, very close to the frontier with China. Ever since the 2020 June Galwan clashes in which 20 Indian soldiers and an even greater number of Chinese soldiers were killed during a violent confrontation, India has consistently increased its deployment in restive Ladakh. The Indian Air Force has revealed how it has been swinging into action, pressing its transport aircraft fleet and deploying over 68,000 troops to forward locations and airlifting 90 tanks, 330 infantry fighting vehicles and several artillery guns over the last 3 years. The Indian Air Force has also airlifted critical assets like radars and surface-to-air guided weapon systems to the Ladakh frontier. The deployment of troops, tanks and ammunition continues as a complete de-escalation or de-induction has not happened in the Ladakh sector.
While there have been no ugly face-offs or clashes between Indian and Chinese troops in eastern Ladakh, tensions continue. While a military dialogue continues, India is making sure that slowly its capabilities enhance in the forward areas. And now, a fully operational fighter aircraft base is coming up barely 50 kilometers from the line of actual control. At more than 13,000 feet, India will make sure that its fighter aircraft can operate and respond quickly to any Chinese aggression.
New additions to these assets are being currently made. The Indian Air Force has inducted its latest Heron Mark II surveillance drones, which can carry out both strike operations as well as extended surveillance operations on the frontiers with China and Pakistan.
Indian Air Force has received its Heron Mark II drone, which are seen as game changer in drone flying in the country's security needs. The drone, which can fly for around 36 hours, can cover the entire length and breadth of India's boundaries with both China and Pakistan, has given a strong capability to Indian Air Force.
Meanwhile, the 19th round of Corps Commander level talks on Monday continues to aim to resolve the ongoing military standoff between the two nuclear neighbors. India is pressing for disengagement of the Chinese army from Depsang in the eastern Ladakh frontier. Military talks come ahead of a likely meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Jinping at the BRICS Leaders Summit in South Africa next week. With Manjeet Negi in Ladakh, Bureau Report, India Today.
A day after 17-year-old NEET aspirant Jagadishwaran died by suicide, his father was also found dead at their home in Chennai. The twin suicides have triggered a massive outrage. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister has blamed the BJP and the state governor for these deaths.
A tragic double suicide in Chennai of a father and son that's numbing India. A teen medical aspirant took his life, leaving his father shattered with nobody left to live for. The father also died by suicide 48 hours later. 19-year-old Jagadishwaran was reportedly depressed over 2 failed attempts to pass the competitive NEET exam and so took his own life at his house in Chennai. His devastated father broke down when he spoke to the media soon after, with an appeal to the government to immediately block NEET in Tamil Nadu as they had promised.
இந்த ரிப்பீட்டை ஒழிச்சா தான் எல்லா பசங்களும் நல்லா இருப்பாங்க. ஐயா ஸ்டாலின் ஐயா வந்த உடனே முதல் வாக்குறுதி அதான் கொடுத்தார். குழந்தையெல்லாம் காப்பாற்றுறேன், நீட்டை கேன்சல் பண்ணுறேன்னாரு. இது வரைக்கும் எதுவுமே பண்ணல. என்ன மாதிரி நிறைய சிங்கிள் பேரண்ட் எனக்கு வந்த மாதிரி எந்த அப்பாவுக்கும் எந்த குழந்தைகளுக்கும் எதுவுமே நடக்கக்கூடாது. அது முதல்வர் ஐயாவும் உதயநிதி ஐயாவும் தான் பேசி, கனிமொழி அம்மாவும் பேசி தான் அதை தீர்த்து வைக்கணும்.
2 days later, the father was found hanging too. The tragic news has sparked a neat debate once again in Tamil Nadu. Chief Minister M.K. Stalin expressed his condolences and urged students not to take such drastic action.
The unfortunate deaths of Jagdishwaran and his father Selvasekhar by suicide, allegedly due to NEET, has shocked the entire state. The Chief Minister has decided to boycott the Independence Day reception to be hosted by Governor Ravi and says that even after 77 years of independence attained by our ancestors, he still wonders if this freedom is for everyone or for a selected few.
மிகவும் கண்டிக்கத்தக்க ஒரு விஷயம். ஒன்றிய பாஜக அரசு ஆனால் இதையெல்லாம் வந்து காதில் போட்டுக்காம மாணவர்களுடைய வாழ்க்கையில் விளையாண்டுட்டு இருக்காங்க. ஆரம்பத்திலேருந்தே நம்ம சொல்லிட்டு இருக்கிறது நீட் தேர்வை ரத்து செய்யுங்க அப்படின்னு தான் கேட்டுக்கிட்டு இருக்கோம். 2 முறை சட்டசபையில் தீர்மானம் நிறைவேற்றி அமைச்சிருக்கிறோம். இங்கே இருக்கக்கூடிய ஆளுநர் வந்து தமிழ்நாட்டு மக்களுடைய மனநிலையை பற்றி எதுவுமே தெரியாமல் நம்முடைய திராவிட முன்னேற்ற கழகம் ஏற்கனவே சொன்ன மாதிரி தொடர்ந்து சட்ட போராட்டத்தை நடத்தும்.
Udayanidi's visit to the hospital was marked by protests as Jagdishwaran's friends surrounded Stalin's son demanding answers. The BJP and DMK are now trading barbs over the NEET exam as the DMK blames the governor for stalling the anti-NEET bill. Remember, the governor just 2 days ago, while interacting with NEET toppers, made it clear he would never sign off on an anti-NEET bill.
I can go to the president because it's a subject of concurrent list. It is a subject of which only the president is competent to give the clearance. But given to me, I shall never give it this year. Why? Because I like my children to go, and I tell you for sure, there are many students who are doing it without coaching.
This unfortunately hasn't been the first such tragic NEET-related suicide, and it's always been followed up by a whole lot of empty promises on banning NEET. But is it time to have a conversation rather than the need to counsel students and provide them with the necessary psychological help to overcome failure in their life rather than take the extreme step? With Pramod Madhav in Chennai, Bureau Report, India Today.
This is where we wrap up the news track tonight. For your time and your trust, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you 8 p.m. tomorrow evening. Till then, from all of us here, goodbye, good night, and here's wishing all our viewers a very happy Independence Day.
चुरा लिया है तुमने जो दिल को नजर नहीं चुराना सनम बदल के मेरी तुम जिंदगानी कहीं बदलना जाना सनम.
The one and only Asha Bhosle. Don't miss it on Independence Day on India Today and Aaj Tak.
चुरा लिया है आपने मेरा दिल मैडम.
साहब, पूरे हिमाचल प्रदेश में भारी बारिश से पिछले 2 दिनों से हाहाकार मचा हुआ है. किस तरह की सरकार की अब योजना है, कैसे निपटेंगे अब आगे, राहत और बचाव कार्य कहां तक पहुंचे?
पिछली बारी की आपदा ने जहां जान माल को कम नुकसान पहुंचाकर संपत्ति को और संपदा को ज़्यादा नुकसान पहुंचाया था, इस बारिश ने जो 24 घंटों से लगातार हो रही है, मुझे लगता है काफ़ी जिंदगियों को हमारे से छीन लिया है. बाकी हमारी प्रयास है कि किसी तरह जीवन को जो दबे हुए हैं कुछ जिंदगियों को बचाया जा सके.
यहाँ पर राहत और बचाव कार्य के लिए क्या एनडीआरएफ की जरूरत है? एसडीआरएफ तो अभी मौके पर.
एनडीआरएफ की एक टीम लगी हुई है, लोकल लोग लगे हुए हैं, पुलिस लगी हुई है और सभी लोग लगे हुए हैं.
क्या लग रहा है कितने और लोग यहाँ पर दबे हो सकते हैं?
जो अभी कहने का हमारे को अभी रिपोर्ट मिली है, सोमवार शिवलिंग को पानी चढ़ाने के लिए काफ़ी लोग यहाँ आते थे और 20-25 लोगों के दबे होने की संभावना व्यक्त की जा रही है।
महाविकास आघाड़ी पर उसका असर अभी तो नहीं दिख रहा है, लेकिन ये जो संभ्रम का जो माहौल बन गया है वो जल्द से जल्द दूर करना जरूरी है। अजीत पवार साहब ने जो आज डिप्यूटी सीएम है, एनसीपी तोड़कर बीजेपी के साथ हाथ मिलाया है और जो लोग शरद पवार साहब के साथ है, कार्यकर्ता है, वो उनसे सड़क पर लड़ रहे हैं। आप उनको क्या संदेश दे रहे हो? ऊपर दो नेता बैठकर चाय पी रहे हैं, अपने रिश्ते निभा रहे हैं और नीचे कार्यकर्ता एक दूसरे के खिलाफ खड़े हैं। अगर हम लोग एकनाथ शिंदे जी के साथ 10 दिन बैठकर चाय पियेंगे तो हमारे कार्यकर्ता को क्या संदेश जाएगा? वो कैसे लड़ पाएंगे नीचे? हाँ, बात ये है, शिवसेना का डीएनए अलग है, शायद उनका डीएनए अलग होगा, लेकिन हम एक साथ काम कर रहे हैं।
पवार साहब के ऊपर हमारा विश्वास है, लेकिन जिस तरह से पुणे में एक उद्योगपति के घर में जो मीटिंग हुई, जिस तरह से अजित पवार पूरे उसका जो प्रोटेक्शन है वो छोड़कर उद्योगपति के घर में पहुंचे, गाड़ी को उनके गेट पे ठोकर लगाई, वो खुद छुप गए, तो इससे जनता में एक संभ्रम हुआ और इसलिए मैं और कल उद्धव जी हम दोनों बैठकर इस विषय पे हमने चर्चा की। संजय राउत जी कुछ पवार साहब से भी बात करेंगे। पवार साहब ने तो कल स्टेटमेंट कर दिया कि मैं उनके बीजेपी के साथ नहीं जाऊंगा, लेकिन तो भी संजय राउत पवार साहब से बात करेंगे और इस सब बात को मैंने राहुल जी से भी आज सुबह मेरी बात हुई। राहुल जी खुद उद्धव जी से और पवार साहब से भी बात करेंगे और जो संभ्रम है वो क्लियर हो जाएगा।
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
Co-presented by Star Health Insurance, the health insurance specialist.
Co-presented by JK Tyre Ranger Series. Stay wild at heart. Co-powered by the new Kia Seltos, the badass reborn. Co-powered by PolicyBazaar.com. हर family होगी insured.
What will Amrit Kaal look like? India in 2047, a vision for the future. The freedom debate. Shashi Tharoor versus Jayant Sinha.
Hello and welcome friends to this very special event in the 77th Independence Day week of India, a week where we bring you the Freedom Idea of India debate, being brought to you on India Today television in partnership with India's international movement to unite nations. And we are here at the Bhavan's Auditorium in front of a wonderful young audience in Mumbai with two eminent guests who I want to introduce in a moment. Please give a loud round of applause to Jayant Sinha, Bharatiya Janata Party, Member of Parliament, former Minister, and an extremely distinguished parliamentarian. To my right is another very distinguished parliamentarian. He's worn several hats over the years. He's here, of course, in his hat as an eminent speaker. Please welcome Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Thiruvananthapuram MP of the Congress Party. So, two of the finest speakers that we have in Parliament, and we hope that they will illuminate us on their idea of India for this young audience that has assembled here. Please give yourselves a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so it's going to be 2 minutes each first, asking both of you, Jayant Sinha and Dr. Tharoor, to tell us what is your idea of India.